Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about finding a percent. And this is something you've actually been doing for quite a while. As a matter of fact, you've been doing it, I believe, as far back as third or fourth grade. It's just usually just been the idea of converting a fraction to a decimal, then taking that decimal and kind of moving that decimal point around. In other words, when you take a fraction divided by a decimal, or a fraction and divide it, turn it into a decimal, like 3 over 4, you get 0.75. To find the percent, you take that decimal, multiply it by 100. Now, what we're getting into today is kind of the idea that proves it, or at least the formula that we've been using, what it actually looks like rather than how we think about it. So another idea, as far as on the topic of thinking about it, is the idea is I know 15 is here. A way that I could break this apart is not just cutting in half, because this is an even number, so I'm not going to come up with a nice number here. What I want to do is think of it, can I divide it into thirds? And I can. If I do that, as a matter of fact, I want to change pens here. Didn't realize I had my green one. What I want to do is I want to sit there and say, there's about a third, there's about a third. Now, I'm not being exact, and that's okay here. What that means is here's 5, here's 10. And what I'm asking is, where in the world is, or what is the number up top? Now, if I divide it into thirds, it becomes more complicated. This would be 33.3 repeating. This would be 66.6 repeating. But we're looking for the number 12. It doesn't show up. So this is where mental math starts failing us. I can divide these in half and get 12 in half. That's not quite 12, so I'm going to move over and say, hey, 12 is somewhere right around in here. And what it's asking is, what's the number up top? So I can think about what the number is. But it's really actually more difficult to try and do mental math here in thinking of how to get a number than it is just to be able to find it. Now, we can use a formula mentally, but that's not mental math. Mental math is how do I think through this process without something like a formula. But mental formula just means we're mentally thinking through the formula, solving the problem. So let's get that formula for you here, and it happens to be on my pink Post-it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this question and we're going to translate all of it into this formula. We do that by substitution. Anytime you have a formula, we are translating our phrase through substitution so that we can find an answer, because we're going to translate through substitution, then we're going to use our skills of solving an equation to find an answer. And what I mean by all that is I have a formula that says is of percent. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on the word is and the word percent, and I'm just going to know 100. The reason is there's actually two rules for of, and it depends on where the phrase or the word is, the word of is in our phrase. So it makes it more complicated. So to simplify it, I take the ones that are always going to be true, and I just use those, and whatever's left is my of. So what I'm going to do is the idea of substitution is I'm going to take the exact same setup, in this case, what's written in black is my fraction bar, my equal sign, my fraction bar, and 100. I've already rewritten that. As you can tell, I've rewritten. All I got to do is figure out what goes in place of the is, the of, and the percent. Well, this one's easy. I look for the percent sign, and if it's missing, we do the same thing we always do when something's missing in math. We make it a variable. So what percent of 15 is 12? I don't see a percent sign. I do see the word percent, so that means I'm going to keep my variable as the percent sign. As we go along, we would have done something like x. But so far, as you can tell, all I'm doing is copying down the exact same thing I already had memorized. What's on the Post-it represents what you should memorize, and this is me working through the problem. So next thing I look for is the is. So I'm going to find the word is, and I'm going to circle the number next to it. Oops, I grabbed the wrong green. I'm going to circle the word is and the number to the right. This right here. What this is telling me is instead of writing the word is here, I'm going to write that number. That's my substitution. Is 12, is up here, so I'm going to write 12. So notice how both items I circled are now showing. One's on my post-it for my formula, one's in the equation I'm going to be solving. Now, what's left is the word of, but in reality, I only have one spot left. So this 15 has to go there. So I'm just going to take that 15, put it down here. Now, I'm going to go through and I'm going to solve this. What I want you to notice is I have my formula here, and all I did was translate this sentence or statement using substitution to get this. And since I'm working on solving it, we have three ways of solving it. We have the Mr. Spies way, we have the equation way, and then I'm going to show you a new way that I want to introduce you to. It's based off of the Spies shortcut, right? It's another form of a shortcut. And really what you're doing is you're not looking to know how to do all three. You're looking to know which one of the three makes the most sense to you, and that's the one you practice. And don't worry about the other two. So the first way is going to be the formula way. The second way I work it is going to be the Spies way. And the third way that I work through this, we're just going to call that the conversion way. Now, these are obviously named for different things, so just to give you an idea, these aren't official names. I literally made them up on the go. So the formula says I rewrite this. Actually, all of them say just rewrite it. And then how I solve it as a formula is I'm going to cross multiply. So I get 15. Now here's where I'm going to turn that percent into a variable, because if I write 15 and then the percent sign as variable, I could easily confuse myself. So I take each of these parts and just drop them down. And what was between them to begin with was an equal sign, so I keep that equal sign. And I go through and I solve this. So I have 15 times x. Since I am multiplying, that means to get x by itself, I divide by the same amount, and I do that to both sides. And I know off the top of my head, 15 goes into 60 4 times, 60 goes into 120 twice, so I take 4 times 2, and I get 8, gets me the 120. But then I have this 0, so I just bring it down. Now that's done. And I've done my division, and these 15s over here cancel, so x equals 80. I now have my answer is x. I wrote a little low, sorry, so I'll rewrite it. I have x equals 80. Now, if I'm doing it the Spies way, what that says to do is I'm going to write my formula, or write my equation, sorry. And also another name for this, I guess we could have put calculator. What we're going to do is we're going to multiply this, 1200, and then just divide by whatever number is left. So again, I'm getting 1200 divided by 15, which is the same thing I got over here. And 80 equals x. So we're still getting the same answer. Now the conversion way, the little bit different. What it says to do is we're always starting out the same. But instead of cross multiply, which is what we've always done here before, I'm actually going to do this division first. I'm going to take 12 divided by 15. What I'm going to get is I'm going to get 0.4. And if you notice, the reason I call it conversion is what I did is I converted this fraction into a decimal. And then I'm just going to multiply by the number that's left. So I'm going to put x, so it's not 0.4, it's 0.8. My brain, I'm telling you. All right, so 0.8, and then we get times 100. Well, 0.8 times 100 means 1, 2 decimal places. So for as many zeros as there are, we move the decimal right because we're multiplying. And that means we're going to be equal to 80 or x equals 80. So we get the same answer no matter which process we use. Pick one and make sure you're practicing it until you master that skill. There isn't one way to do this type of problem. Again, my teaching style is to expose you to as many methods as I can so you can find the one you're comfortable with. And if we have to look at other ways, let me know. On that note, guys, make sure that you're looking at this, you're going through it, and step by step, again, going through it, we can mentally think about it and compare it on a number line or chart, and as far as numbers and percent, but that gets really difficult when we're talking about numbers like this. So what we're really looking for is to be able to translate our phrase by using substitution and our formula, right? So we started out the formula here, so we've got to translate through substitution into this formula, and we got this guy here. Once we've done that, we have three methods. We will be choosing one of these three to do. We will cross multiply, then solve the equation. We can multiply or cross multiply and divide by the number that's left, or we can convert our fraction into a decimal and multiply it by whatever number is left. These three ways we'll be able to use throughout the entire process, so I will be showing them more in fast forward as we go along. I just want to make sure to go a little bit in depth here. If you have any questions, make sure you email those to me tonight. Stay safe, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.